Okay, and we are live. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everyone from home watching. Tonight is a very special episode again because it is the second episode of season two here in Youth Talks. I am your host, Kalle, and
Okay,
tonight
and
we
we
have
are
a
live.
special guest
Good evening.
from all the way from Malaysia. Okay, and please introduce yourself, Mr. Lam.
Magandang gabi. It's an honor to be able to speak to all the Filipino youth here today. Ako si Victor. I work for the Google team, and in Google there is many uh, I guess functions, and I work for the education team that supports a lot of the distance learning that all of you are experiencing today. For this evening, I'll be able to share, some tips and tricks for distance learning, as well as, some advice for what you want to do after high school, and if you're in university,
Mm,
what to do after university as well.
okay. Now that we have an idea of what we'll talk about tonight, can we get more onto what is it that you do? Like, what do you do in a day, Mister? What do you do, Vic?
Great. So it's a very good question.
Thank you.
I guess the better way to answer it would be what the week looks like. In the Google for Education team, we work to support a lot of educators. So, especially in the Philippines right now, as schools still remain closed, we work in upskilling a lot of Filipino educators to be able to use a lot of the Google tools that you and I are very familiar with. For example, a lot of you are familiar with your personal Gmail. A lot of you may be familiar with Google Drive. And some of your teachers may also use tools like Google Classroom, for example. A lot of our work is ensuring that a lot of your teachers and perhaps even some of your parents are upskilled enough to be able to use these tools as well. So that's one part of our work. The second part of our work is also ensuring, large government bodies like the Department of Education have the right
Okay.
infrastructure as well to support schools, across the Philippines, and to be able
Mm-hmm.
to deliver the type of tools and learning uh, that you need as well. We do a lot of work with the Department of Education in terms of their infrastructure, upskilling teachers, and also recommending the right type of content or teaching strategies for teachers to be able to teach, as well as curating content as well for young students to be able to independently learn on their own. In short, that's generally what we do on a weekly basis. There's a
Wow.
lot more
Okay.
to that, but that's the gist of it in general.
That's just the gist. Okay, so I guess
Hmm.
you could say that Google Education is like it's like a construction company, except you guys build virtual schools now. you know, it's like you build the virtual classrooms for everybody. Yeah, it's a new age. It's a new era. Yeah, I guess you can say that. Okay, Vic, I really want to know since it as a kid I've always been exposed to Google. I've always wondered what is it like working in Google. Like is it really how they say that? Every day there's always something new and cool to do. Can you describe to me what is the work environment like? Before the whole pandemic thing happened and now. Aside from before, Vic, what is the work environment like?
Great. That's a question I get all the time about what's it like to be able to work in Google. On a day-to-day basis, you will meet a lot of your colleagues who are incredibly funny, incredibly smart people, and they all come from all sorts of backgrounds. Some come from engineering, some come from a business background, some come from the arts, some come from religious studies. So Google hires all sorts of people, because we have so many business functions. So we hire all sorts of people with various skills from various backgrounds. So on a everyday basis, we get to meet all these people who work in all of the various departments in Google from different backgrounds.
Okay.
It's a great pleasure to be able to work with this really intelligent people every day because they make you a much better person. So you learn from them in terms of how to communicate better, for example. You learn from them in terms of how to problem solve. You learn from them about how do you manage big problems, for example. So it's really exciting to be alongside really, really smart colleagues. So that to me is why I wake up every morning to work with these really incredible people. And the second thing is, Google is constantly building many wonderful products. So we
I
primarily
know that.
started off, yeah. So as most of you know, we primarily started off with what we call a search engine.
Mm-hmm.
So we are constantly trying to make a search a lot easier for people and more useful. So if you look at the Philippines right now, a lot of the top searches fall in the education category. As well
Yeah.
as in the entertainment category. So, we work very hard to make search results a lot more useful to the type of users who want to search for it. So, for
Yeah.
teachers, they are trying to understand how do they teach online. For parents, they are trying to understand how do they help their children online. And for you know entertainment as well, we have very, very narrowed down results to make our lives easier as a whole. So yeah, we started off as search, but we are trying to make a lot of our tools more accessible and more useful to the world. Yeah, so we're constantly working on a lot of new products as well. So it's and things move very fast as a technology company.
Yeah.
It is just crazy in a good way.
Hmm. I can
That
only imagine. Yes.
yeah, crazy in a good way. That we're constantly trying to think about how can we make the world a better place. How do we make lives for parents easier? How do we make lives for businesses easier? And what type of tools can we provide to them? So, in the education field, yeah, that's why we have many tools. For example, like Google Classroom, which is a virtual classroom where teachers and students join. We have Google Meet, which is our video conferencing tool for you to be able to still talk to your classmates, even though you may not see them at this point in time. So yes,
Yeah.
we have wonderful tools to help everybody. So I talked about the wonderful colleagues that I have. I talked about the new products that we're building every day. And thirdly, I think what makes it very attractive is, as I mentioned, we always think about how can we make the world better. So in the context of working here, I think a lot of people are geared towards that. So for all the young Filipino students who are in school today or in college or about to graduate, yeah, I would encourage you to think about how would you make the world a better place. And so that's a term that we use, which is called googly. So to be googly means to know what your unique place is in the world and how you want to use your unique skills to make the world a better place. So that's actually one of
Wow.
our, I guess, criteria when we hire new people. So yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Mm,
So yeah, I guess you could really. What I really got from that is like Google just really helps more of other people rather than helping themselves. Like the employees are more of helping the world rather than them working for their own gain. That's what I got from that basically. So yeah, and you also mentioned that education is really like one of the top searches right now. So I believe you have a presentation to show for us, and can we just see it real quick? I'm sure we can learn a lot about it. So just a share screen.
Naman, I'm very happy to share some of the
Okay.
initiatives that we're doing.
Okay. I am
All
also
right.
very, very excited for this. Okay.
Yeah. So can everyone see the
There you
screen?
go. Okay. I can see the
All,
screen now. I can
all
see the
right.
screen. All
Great.
good.
So I'll quickly just run through the most important points like I like to drive across.
Okay.
So you know, Google's mission in the world is to organize the world's information on the internet and to make it as accessible to anyone and to be as useful to anyone as possible. So as I mentioned earlier, we're working to make our search results a lot useful to the type of people who want to use it. So as I mentioned, if you're a student wanting to do your assignment, you go on search and you get good results. And if you're someone who's wanting to learn a new recipe, you go on search and
Yep, you can
therefore,
still go Google it. Yeah.
yes,
Google
you
is
can
really
Google.
accessible. I know that.
Yeah, so we want to make it as useful to anybody. If you want to be a better football player or a basketball player, we go to Google. So yeah,
Yeah,
we want
Google
to
can
make
help
it
you with that.
as easy as possible.
Mm,
All right.
very universal.
So
Okay.
especially during the pandemic, what we've seen a lot of institutions close. We've seen schools close, we've seen a lot of businesses close as well. So what COVID 19 has done is help to drive a lot of our demand for our services. So, for example, we've seen a lot of usage on YouTube increase, and we've seen a lot of usage in Google Classroom increase as well. So, when you ask me to share about my day-to-day job is to make sure that everybody is learning well online. Okay,
Okay.
right? So, in the Philippines, we are rolling out a lot of new initiatives. So, if you've seen the news recently, we have worked with DepEd to roll out free Google education accounts to 22 million teachers and educators in all
Wow.
public schools in the Philippines. So
22
DepEd
million.
is yes, that's one of our largest deployments in Asia, really. So we're really excited to be delivering more Google services to more Filipino school children and teachers. So yes, working very closely with that pet, right? And yeah, maybe I'll just keep this for now. So yeah, some of these icons that you see are some of the cool products that we get to work with every day. So some of you have seen these logos before, but
Yes.
this is what it looks like in a school environment. So on a day-to-day basis, if you're having a virtual school, this is how it looks like. So we have products like Google Classroom to store all your homework and assignments, and for the teacher to manage the class. And we have Google Meet, which is like Zoom, which is our video conferencing tool. And for a lot of young students, we have things like Google Search. And like I mentioned earlier, it helps you to really do a lot of self independent study. And I'm
Yes.
not sure if you
I
knew
know
this,
that.
but yep, YouTube is also a Google product. So YouTube is also one of the tools that we help
Yeah.
curate better learning
One of the
content for.
biggest tools, I'm sure.
Yes, all right. So yes, we have all these tools provided for the student to be able to do their virtual class. Okay, right. So, yep, this is a bit about Google Classroom. So, if you don't already know what Google Classroom is, don't worry. If you're a DepEd, we'll be rolling this out to your school really soon. So, Google Classroom is essentially a place where you join your class virtually to be able to submit your homework, for your teacher to grade your homework and to return it as well. Right. So Google Classroom is one
Yeah.
really interesting tool. And yeah, in the Philippines, as I mentioned earlier, here are some of the most popular channels that's being used by young students and teachers. So you can see here that here are some recommended channels that we have seen a lot of views coming on in terms of education. And I would like to point out that DepEd as well has their own official channel. So you will see more content coming in very, very soon, right? And with YouTube, we've also have an initiative called Learn at Home. So Learn at Home is catered for young students and for anybody who wants to be able to still keep up with their lessons. So if you search for your particular topic, for example, mathematics, fashion, or arts, religious studies, you will find it all here for you, right?
Okay.
And yeah,
I haven't heard of that one, the YouTube Learning. That's new to me.
yeah, yes. So yes, YouTube Learning is a dedicated channel for anyone who wants to have good educational content delivered right to their doorstep. All right,
Wow.
cool. Mhm.
Okay.
All right. I don't have too many slides left, but I'll just talk about some of the other applications that we have. So,
Okay.
we also, if you have a smartphone, I highly encourage you to download something called Socratic. So Socratic is like a personal tutor that you have on your phone. So it helps you to understand various concepts that may be difficult to grasp. So maybe things like in physics or chemistry, yeah, you'll be able to use Socratic.
So that's like
Uh,
an AI.
I would say yes. A lot of the, I
Wow.
guess, elements of Socratic is built on artificial
Okay.
intelligence.
So can you
So
talk to it? Can you talk to Socratic,
you can't
or
talk to
is it just
Socratic
type?
yet. It's
Okay.
type, and it will be
Okay.
able
Okay. Okay.
to. So based on what you type, it will be able to suggest various topics or various concepts for you to explore further.
Oh. Okay.
So,
Okay. Okay.
mhm,
I get
all
it
right.
now. I
So
thought it was
that's
something like
Socratic.
Siri, that you can have a conversation with.
Yes, so actually you can speak out what you want to look for, and it will produce those type of results for you. So
Oh,
I
okay.
highly
Okay.
encourage everyone to download Socratic after this.
All right.
All right, and for I guess younger parents, or for those of you who have younger brothers and sisters, we also have an app called Read Along. So Read Along essentially helps very young children practice their reading skills in English. So it's very interactive and it's very self-guided. So I would encourage you to, if any
Hmm.
of you have very young siblings at home, this is the app to download for them to be
All
able to
right.
practice their reading in English. Yeah. So all right, and yeah, of course, Google also has its own devices. So we have something called a Chromebook, which is
Ah, I have used
uh,
that once in my school.
yes.
Chromebook.
So a Chromebook is a bit like a normal PC, but it's suited to use all the Google tools that I presented earlier. Yep. So
Wow.
I guess that's pretty much it in terms of
That's pretty
my
much
day
it.
to day. And also the products. So I think we can go back to, I guess, the interview.
Okay. Back to the conversation. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. So basically, Google is really, really getting into the whole online learning stuff. Like it's really improving since before pre-pandemic period. I have used Google products like Google Docs. For my substitute for Microsoft, for Apple users, for Pages. I've always used Google because it is true. It is super accessible. It's so easy to use, and you don't have to pay for it. That's what I love. You don't have to pay for it.
Yes.
So yeah,
So
okay, and
yeah,
yeah, so I just want to ask you, let's try to forget your Google background, okay? Try to forget that you're a Google employee. As
right.
a Victor Lamb, as a person, okay? Personally, do you think online classes work? Online education, do you think it works?
I think online education works if you have, for example, the right infrastructure. I think it also works if you have the right understanding about how you want to make the most out of it for yourself. All right. So
Hmm.
maybe I can just share. So online learning, there is a lot of opportunities as well as challenges that we at Google are trying to solve. So before I joined Google, I was actually an educator. So I know what it's
Wow.
like
Okay.
to be
Teaching.
put, yeah, to be teaching and to be put in an environment where sometimes, for example, the internet connectivity is not always there. you know Back in my home country, if you go outside the major cities, you probably won't get a very good connection. So that's one thing. And the second thing that I can empathize very strongly with as well is that not every family or every student may have the best device for learning. So if you're in a good family where if you have a laptop or even a smartphone to yourself, I think you're in a very good position to be able to study online. Um, I empathize greatly with a lot of families who may have to share perhaps one device among many siblings or even among
Yeah.
the whole family. So online learning has its challenges. So yeah, definitely, if in the Philippines we are working closely with DepEd, for example, to be able to, number one, ensure that the connectivity would be more accessible. Working together with our partner telco companies, and secondly, to make sure that Filipino students get the right type of devices. So those are the two biggest challenges. But the greatest opportunity here is the ability to shape the mindset. So as I talked about earlier, online learning is suitable if you know how to make the best out of it. So we have to begin to see, and this is my personal view. So we have to
Okay.
be able
Here
to
we go.
see that. Yeah, we have to be able to see school not just as a place that you depend on your teacher anymore. So with online learning, a lot of the dependence is shifted back to the student. So, for
Yeah.
example, how are they able to independently study, given that schools may not open like they used to be before the pandemic? So, online learning will help build a lot of independence in the sense that students will have to look for the materials themselves. Students will have to be more independent in accessing the internet. So, how do we teach students to be able to look for the right information in the right places? So, I think online learning encourages a lot of independent learning. It also helps the student, you know, prepare for, university or even
Mm.
when they go to
Yeah.
work. Because when you go to university or when you go to work in the future, a lot of your efforts would have to be independent. And of course, you will have your teammates with you. You will have your university mates, but a lot of the world and a lot of the future jobs in the world will rely on a lot of your self independence and the ability for you to still communicate with your colleagues or your classmates well. So I think online learning is also useful in the sense that it shifts away a lot of the attention on exams and focuses more on the holistic development of the character as well. So that to
Yeah.
me is some of the best opportunities out there. Yeah, as well as the
Yeah.
challenges. So yeah,
Yeah.
exciting times
Exactly.
ahead. Hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because as a student, I also know, the feeling of online learning. We just started classes and I can really sense and I can really emphasize too that you really need to work on yourself, your values, your discipline, your attitude towards stuff. Because I think that's one of the biggest lessons online learning has taught me. Because if you don't practice doing stuff by yourself, like just doing it independently, you won't succeed. I just
Hmm.
today in the morning, I crammed a really really long reading and writing essay, and I am mentally drained right now. So I completely like know the feeling of online classes, and that brings me to my next point. Let's stay on the personal note of things, okay? I don't want you to be biased because you're an employee from Google, but I want you to give me your complete honest answer. It's been a big controversy here in my country about academic freeze. People are saying maybe we should freeze the school year for this year. Continue when it's all okay. And some people are also saying no, no, no. Let's just continue with it. Why stop it when we can do it? So for you, Vic, do you support academic freeze or no?
Well, I don't want to get into trouble, but don't worry, I do have my views on it as well. So, academic freeze is, yes. So I read that Philippines has faced extended school closures till October. That could
Yeah.
possibly be extended. And the Philippines is not alone, right? I don't think they are alone in this journey. And I think
I
there's
agree.
still a lot of schools, for example, in India, for example, in the US, that still remain closed or partially closed. So the academic freeze, I think, has been done with the right intentions to be able to prevent, I guess, the further spread. But I would say that, we have to understand the opportunity behind it as well. So, uh,
How so? How so?
uh, it is also potentially very, I guess, challenging, because if you close schools for such a long time, you set back a child's education, by a few months, by a year. So that means they have a lot of catching up to do. And in terms of, capital development or talent development in the long run, that may slow down a certain country in that sense. So yeah, I think while school closures have been done with good intentions, I would say that that is the consequence of it. That a particular child may lose a few months worth or maybe a year's worth of education. So
Yeah,
which is why I think, in the Philippines, it's very crucial to be able to find alternatives. So the path forward is paved with a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty, which is why I feel like I talked to you earlier. I think the ability for humans, when put under pressure or when they have a resource taken away, it helps them become even more creative, right? So right now,
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of school.
I agree.
A lot of school systems are innovating, So if the school is closed, what can we do? So we constantly like to be challenged, right? So humans
Yeah,
like to be challenged, especially those at Google. So, and especially working with the great folks in that pet, they are finding the most innovative ways to be able to still continue education even though schools are closed. Which is why it's been very great working with them to launch our platforms for Filipino students. So, yes, school freeze has its challenges and has serious consequences, which is why, you know a lot of countries around the world, including the Philippines, is finding ways to be able to still continue the education online. Because, as I mentioned to you earlier, we get to build a different set of skills, and the current infrastructure, as you know it now, will be forever changed if we make the right decisions to invest heavily in terms of technology, invest
yeah, yeah,
heavily in changing the student mindset. And in the next 3 to 5 years, hopefully, when the pandemic is gone, the Filipino school system will be much better off because of the decisions and its innovations that is made this year and the next year. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's
I
my
believe that
answer.
too. I believe that too. Thank you, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I got a lot from what you said. Actually, I learned a lot from it, and I just want to pull up quickly my paper here that I did, because I recently, I'm gonna just share this on a personal note. Today, I was writing a paper about the importance of education during the pandemic, and I made a fair amount of words to my essay, and I also want to ask you, Vic,
Fantastic.
because yeah, I also want to ask you, because maybe is it okay if I use your answer for my essay?
I mean,
Because
don't quote me on it, but you can definitely
I
reference the
won't, I
idea.
won't, I won't. Okay, I will reference the idea to you, Vic. So let me
Uh-huh.
ask you the question. Okay, do you think it's important to continue education amidst the pandemic? Because you see, I'll share first, okay? So you can have some resting time, okay? So I'll share my points. My points here, basically, I know that learning never stops. That's my number one point. I realize as a student, every day I learn. So I might as well make that everyday learning experience become more comprehensive. With I mean, like, education gets fueled by technology now and different kind of learning modalities. There's different ways, like what you said. Once you take a particular resource from a person, it pushes that person to be more creative. I i love that. I really want to quote you for that. That's such an amazing statement, because I agree too. I consider myself a very creative person, and ever since I have been restricted of my of my freedom to go out and do what I want, I've been it's like I'm craving for creativity. So for you, Vic, um do you think it's important to continue education? What are your points? Just quick, simple. Nothing too long. Just straight to the point. You think it's important?
Yeah, it's definitely important to continue your education. And I mean, I want to stress a point here that, and like you said, I completely agree with you that at any age, even if you've done with high school or university, or even if you're about to retire, learning never stops.
Yeah,
So I would say that, education shouldn't stop in the sense that your motivation to improve yourself, your motivation to be a better person for your family, for your friends, for your country, shouldn't stop you from becoming better in terms of learning new things, improving on your
mm,
strengths, understanding where
yeah.
your weaknesses are, and understanding, where you fit in terms of your contributions to society in general. So, in that sense, education should never ever stop. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Quick,
Hmm.
simple. I like that. I like that. Thanks, Vic.
Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned in your short introduction you wanted to share some tips and tricks for us. For the people watching, the kids watching, the parents watching. I know you
For
guys
sure.
really want to hear some tips from a Google expert. Okay,
I'm
so do you have
I'm
any?
definitely not an expert.
Oh, I consider you an expert, man. Come on. You know how you talk? It's just that's
Yeah.
expert material for me.
Okay.
Okay, so Vic, can you tell us some tips? Tell the viewers some tips how to transition
Yeah.
better from face to face learning to online learning. What are your tips?
Okay. Sure. So, how do we transition better? So, as I mentioned to you, it takes a while to adjust. So, I think number one, you have to think about what you want to achieve in a single day. So as you mentioned earlier, you have to have the discipline to not, for example, lie on your couch or lie on your bed when it's time to
Yeah.
actually join the video call, because your teacher can't see you and they can't see your reaction. So, number one is a lot of self discipline, the ability to plan out what I want to do in the day. So, for example, what sort of subjects do I want to revise today? How much research should I do? What sort of time blocks should I schedule in my calendar for me to be able to accomplish those tasks? So I think self discipline is very important. And the second thing I need to stress on is, please don't look at your screen so much. So because um, I don't think it's super healthy to be sitting in front of your screen for too long. As humans, naturally, we want to be able to move. We want to be able to stay creative. So, I would encourage a lot of young students out there, to be able to in. So, let's say if you've blocked out some time for studying, I would also encourage you to block out some time to be able to pick up a new skill at home. So, for example, exercising at home has become a new trend.
Yeah.
Cooking at home, learning new recipes has become a new trend. So, if you have those things that you're able to still fulfill at home, I think that should be your other motivation to be able to learn new things outside of your studies. So, yeah, so number one, definitely self discipline. And number two, definitely don't look at your screen too much, but make sure you have time to learn other new things. So people do things like gardening or plant house plants, exercising at home.
Planting. My mother loves
Yeah,
that. Yes.
cooking. Yeah, so yeah, it can be stressful just staying at home the whole time, and
Yeah.
everybody feels it. People who work at home feel it as well. So find out what you really like to do, and yeah, just don't look at the screen for too long. But make sure you have enough time for your studies, discipline, and yeah, make time for other things. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Hmm.
okay, let me just recap everything so the viewers can remember it. First tip, discipline yourself, get your work on, do what you got to do. I got to tell myself that, Vic, I myself, I'm not very productive, man. It's okay. I always procrastinate. I always find reasons not to do it. I'm like, oh, it's just a
Yep.
draft, so I don't have to do it yet. Okay. So basically, discipline. I'll try to do that. I'll take it from you, man. I'll take it from you. I'm gonna discipline myself. I'm gonna improve my attitude towards learning because only I can help me. Okay. And second tip that you gave us, Vic, is take some time away from your screen too,
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yep.
find a hobby like my mother. If you want to be like my mother, plant. If you want to be like my mother, cook. Find other stuff to do. Get out of your phone, okay? Okay, and those basically two strong tips, two strong tips from the great Mr.
Hmm.
Vic. Okay,
Yep.
and Vic, there's this thing that I always do in youth talks. I always ask all of my guests this question. There hasn't been an episode where I haven't asked this question. And I believe we're almost about to end tonight's episode. So I want to ask you this, okay? As a person, Victor Lam, are you a risk taker or safe player?
I think when you evolve through life, I would say that the one thing you would regret more is the things you didn't do compared to the
Mm,
things that you actually did. So I would say that and yeah, this is going to be a bit more personal. So I learned this
yes,
lesson the hard
please come
way.
on.
When for example, if you do like somebody, let's say you were in school and you liked a certain guy
Mm,
or a girl, I wouldn't
okay.
hesitate to tell her, because if you didn't tell that person you had an interest in them, then you would never know what their response would be. Chances are they may feel the same, chances are they may not, but at least you tried, and
Yeah.
it would be a lot better compared to wondering for the rest of your life for the next few months thinking, I wonder what he or she may have said. And the same goes to with a lot of choice decisions that you make down the road. So for example, things like, oh, should I apply for the job? I don't think I'm good enough. But if you think
Yeah.
you're good enough and you think you have the right experience, then apply for it. So I would say you would need to thrive in this world, you will need to be able to take risks, but in a calculated sense. Calculate how much risks you are willing to take. So definitely take risks, but calculate it to a point where you feel comfortable enough to say, okay, I'm fine being embarrassed. I'm fine being, losing out on, a potential job offer, but take that as a learning experience if it doesn't work out way. And if it does, then fantastic. So yeah, that's my advice. But I mean, I have a few more things to share as well that may be useful to younger folks who are considering what to want to do after high school or
Okay,
in
yes,
after
please.
university.
Please
Great.
give us the young folks a message. Vic, come
I
on.
don't- got it. Let me just quickly share my screen. I've just got a few more points I want to stress across.
Okay, yes, yes, of course, no problem.
Okay. So this may contradict a lot of things, but your exam results, be it in school or in university, while important, they do not determine your overall success. And this is important because when you go to work, nobody's going to ask you, "Oh, how do you do in high school?" But it's important. It's important at that time when you want to make the next step from high school to university. But overall, once you graduate and once you start working, it does not determine your overall success. But what determines or what helps make that success is your character. Um, how good of a leader are you? For example, how well do you work with other people, and how well do you motivate people? Those type of things that fit into your character will determine your overall success, and how eager are you to learn, for example, right? The second thing I wanted to say is that when an opportunity arises, step up. Do not uh, shy away from it. Take it as a challenge to improve yourself. All right. The third thing is, when people ask you for your opinion, offer it based on data, based on evidence that you have, and base it on your understanding or firm understanding of what you know about a particular topic when people ask you for your opinion. All right. Learn to agree and disagree. All right. So that's what it means to be a consensus builder. So there's going to be many people who agree and disagree with your idea. So how do you make people agree with you, work with you even more, and how do you make people who disagree with you understand your viewpoint, and for you to understand their viewpoint as well in terms of making your overall idea better. All right, and be very good at cultivating long-term relationships. And why I say this is important is because you never know that sometimes some of your high school friends or some of your university friends, they're going to be, for example, the CEO of Globe. They're going to be the chief technology officer in Smart or in the Ayala Group, for example. So you never know where your friends will end up one day, and they'll be able to, for example, introduce you to your next career path, help you apply into university, or introduce you to new opportunities along the way. So be very good in cultivating long-term relationships. So, and just to share, that's how I actually ended up working in the Google team, is because one of my friends from a while ago told me one day, "Hey, Vic, I saw this job opportunity, and I think you should apply for it." So if it wasn't for him telling me that this job came up, I wouldn't have known. All right, and yeah, lastly is to stay humble. I think you know. I get a sense that sometimes self entitlement is out there, but to make it big in the world, yeah, just start humble and be willing to absorb and to learn like a sponge. Right. And last but not least, so I just wanted to share some opportunities as well that you can
Okay.
consider. Yeah. So and this is maybe more towards, I guess, people who are in university or have finished university. So there is something from the US State Department called the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative. So there's a lot of young Filipinos who apply to this program, and it's a sponsored 8-week exchange to the US where they have, I guess,
Wow.
like an internship over there in the field of
Okay.
choice. So there's been many Filipinos who have gone on this exchange, and I've met them there in the US. So a lot of them come from backgrounds like law, business, finance, the arts, non-profits. So it's a great exchange to the US. And if you're a graduate and would like to do your master's, we also have something from the UK government, which is a completely sponsored master's degree to the UK. And both these
Wow.
opportunities are available to, yeah, Filipinos. So yeah, definitely take this chance
Okay.
to apply for these types. All right.
Thank you for
So
that.
that's it from
Wow.
me. Yeah. Okay.
That's it. Wow. Thank you for that. That was such an amazing talk, discussion. Thanks, Vic. I learned a lot from you. Thank you for sharing those points, those quotes. Man, it's such a good thing to have you here on my show. Okay, and I guess that is it for tonight, guys. If you have any, thoughts on anything that we've talked about tonight, just feel free to comment it down below. And guys, remember it's Burr months already. So Merry Christmas already. It's already September. Yeah, Vic, for in the Philippines, if you lie on the Burr months already, it's basically Christmas already. We start putting up their Christmas lights, Christmas trees, you
Mabuti,
know.
mabuti.
Yes, okay. And thank you. That is it for tonight. I am your host again, Kalle Ranti, and this is Youth Talks. Thank you and good night. Okay.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Vic.
Thank you.